And there we go. All right.
Woo! We are live
everybody. All right, welcome everybody to my weekly live stream with my buddy Carmelia Ray. We are talking about how to manage and resolve conflict. We do a room every week on the topic of powerful partnerships, right? Because Carmelia and I are a powerful partnership, and so we thought we'd talk about the exact same thing with all of you. So happy to be here and happy to have the conversation. If you are joining us, comment below, let us know where you're from, where you're writing in from, share your questions, because you may have had conflict. Have you dealt with conflict? How do you negotiate conflict? How do you get out of conflict? Do you let go of the partnership? Can you mend the partnership? There's lots of questions here that we want to have answered, and so it's important for us to understand exactly what that's about. So with that, Carmelia, why don't you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bobby. I love that we're having this topic because, for those of us coming out of the pandemic and those of us who are still in it in certain places, it kind of feels like we're just going to go back to normal soon. There was a lot of conflict, I'm sure, inside a lot of households, including a lot of companies and a lot of partnerships, because we found ourselves in new and difficult situations. And I've been in the dating and relationship space now for over 30 years. I had the pleasure of working with, in my relationship business, top level CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners, and we talk a lot about conflicts in their love lives and, of course, in the workplace. So I'm very, very curious about this, well-versed on the topic. And so we're going to dive into both workplace conflict. I did work for 18 years in a company or for several companies before I chose to become an entrepreneur in 2010. And so, Bobby, I'd love to just talk about, because there's so many places where conflicts happen. I was doing a little bit of research in terms of conflict. Let me go with you in terms of where you are seeing, conflict inside of the workplace, or maybe with some of your own clients.
Well, I think two things come to my mind when it comes to conflict. One is when personalities clash, different personality types, different styles. And someone may not like that I'm collaborative. Someone may not like that I'm decisive, and so I think that can get in the way. The other time it happens is when there's misalignment on vision, values, where you're going, what we're trying to do, and so there's a misunderstanding that happens that gets in the way too.
Yeah, it's really what to your second point, and for those who are new to this conversation, I believe this is our fourth talk. In one of our previous talks, we talked about what you should be discussing before entering partnership. And what happens when you have conflict is sometimes that you forgot or you didn't have this discussion about partnership. And now you're finding yourself, oh man, we probably should have thought about that before we found ourselves in this situation. And Bobby, I did a tiny bit of research, and I found an article on Indeed. This might be helpful for some of our listeners. And of course, this is not the end all be all. There are so many different categories and styles, right? And they published an article called 8 Types of Management Styles. And you brought that up, Bobby. So I'm going to really run through this without going through all the categories in detail. And I'd love to hear what you think your style is, and I'll share what's mine. Okay. So
sure, go for it. I love it.
Yeah, the different management styles. There's a democratic management style, a laissez-faire management style, an autocratic management style. And that, just for those who want the definition, is centered around results and efficiency. A charismatic management style, a coach management style, pace setting management style, bureaucratic, and transactional. Now, each of these have all definitions, right? And in terms of management styles, some people don't work well under those kinds of management styles. And so it's important, even when you're interviewing and you find yourself interviewing for a position or if you are the employee looking to hire, that you have these discussions about the kind of company culture and the kind of management style that you adopt, because it really might not be a fit for some people. As the example of the management style, which is autocratic or pace setting. In these examples, high paced, very high bar, very micromanaged. And if that's not where you thrive, that's likely going to present a lot of conflict for you in your day to day. What do you think about those, Bobby?
Well, I was just looking up the articles. I want to make sure I got them all. And I mean,
Yeah,
I think
I
obviously,
will, yeah, I can send it to you privately. And then, yeah,
no,
for
I already
sure.
have it. I already have it. So what I can
Okay,
say is that,
perfect, perfect.
when it comes to these things, I find that I've typically many different types. There's different parts between all of them. But I think, like, so I think there's definitely a part of me that's democratic. There's a part of me that's laissez-faire. There's a part of me that's coach management. But I would say the number one is the charismatic piece. I'm very big on passion, persuasion. I'm very committed to my causes. I'm really big on the relationships, rallying a team around a common goal. I'd say that's my primary. My secondary is probably Democratic because I want to hear from everybody. But at the end of the day, I'm the type of person I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to look. Here's based on what you said. Here's what I'm going to do, and I'm willing to do that. So yeah, it's really cool to see that, and I love this whole kind of list. We'll put that in the chat
Yeah,
as
we should.
well for you guys to take a
Let's
look at, because I think
let's
that
do that.
knowing what your style is will allow you to avoid conflict in the future. So we talked earlier about preventative things you can do. I think this list is really great for that. Now, where are you on this, Carmelia?
Oh my gosh, I have been a lot of those different things. And it's so funny because, as you know, Bobby, I identify myself as an entrepreneur. So, depending on the companies I'm working with and the people that I'm working with, sometimes I will change my style according to that audience. So, for example, I recently worked with somebody who is wanted to work with me on my team, and when it comes to certain tasks in my on my current team in matchmaking, I can be a little laissez-faire because I tend to hire people who've already got experience. However, if somebody's coming in without a lot of experience or doesn't have the training, I really can't use a laissez-faire approach, because we haven't built that relationship yet for them to be like, what do I, they need more management, right? And that's sometimes the issue, is sometimes when I'm too busy and I feel like I'm delegating a task to a competent person, but that person, and it's not that they're not competent, but maybe they're just not at the point yet where they want you to let them, they almost thrive in micromanagement. Like they need you to tell them what to do, or they're not sure of the process yet. So to your point, charismatic style is certainly mine. I absolutely love the democratic approach because I love team environments, and I want to feel in any company that I'm working with or associated with that people have voices, right? That being said, there are some times in companies where a democratic style just doesn't work, right? And there are, like, let's say the medical profession, you need the surgeon. You don't want, it's really the expert's viewpoint or that leader that's driving or moving the needle that should have the final say. So that's something that is really interesting. So it really just depends on the company you're with, the team environment, and the amount of work or setting up those expectations. But like you, Bobby, I really thrive in the charismatic style as well. Now, pace setting management style. We're talking about this from an Indeed article. Leaders who practice the pace setting management style often set high standards for their team and are especially concerned with speed and efficiency. Now, there are some people that will not, they don't fit that role, and in fact would probably be very anxious inside of that, or feeling very pressured. Where for me, when I work in a slow paced environment, I get bored easily, or I'm like distracted, or I need more things to do. So it's so interesting as well when I find myself working in partnership with somebody where we're just not a fit. So when that happens, because we're talking about conflict resolution, and part of the reason why I thought it was important to talk about these management styles, it's also important to talk about conflict resolution styles and how you are going to manage and resolve that conflict. So I would love to hear from you, Bobby. What are some of the steps or points in how you would recommend people to resolve conflict in the workplace. And I definitely want to leave some room for talking about conflict resolution in the personal space.
Yeah, and let me say a couple of things. Conflict covers everything. It covers partnerships. It covers working in teams. It covers with your boss. It covers your partner. And one common theme I'm going to say about all of them is that whenever there's conflict in any sort of partnership, is we delay as much as possible before having to deal with it. So like this is a
Yes.
common thing. Like I won't leave a toxic boss for 6 months. I won't leave a toxic relationship for 5 years. I mean, by the time people in relationships, personal relationships, seek help or counseling, it's 5 years in and they're already on their way out. And
Very
that's a
true.
big problem. And same thing with work. I'll share a quick story with the. So I work with a VA, virtual assistant, and there was some conflict, and it took me a while before I was like willing to deal with it. I probably spent 3-4 months feeling frustrated, feeling like, I'm not getting what I want, or it's really confusing. There's disconnect. And finally, I started taking, and I decided that the best way to take care of it was to be upfront honest. So I talked with her, and I talked with her managers. Look, this is not working for me. Here's what I expected. Here's what I wanted. Here's what's happening. I'd like to, and they were like, "Would you want to have a new VA?" I'm like, "No, I'd like to have her take the feedback and see if she wants to keep working first. And if she doesn't want to, or we want to end the relationship, that's fine. But I'm willing to give her a chance." And so that was good because we started working, and I set clear expectations on how I wanted to communicate and things like that. So for me, one is identifying the fact that there's a delay. Number two, thinking what's the best way to talk to this person, because to me, like whenever there's conflict, usually it's probably good to write it down. Write down your feelings, and then you want to have some sort of meeting, because it's hard. I've had what I call courageous conversation with a boss. I've had courageous conversation with my wife, and usually the other thing I do is I write down my notes on a page. Then I ask if we can have a conversation, and I even say, "Can I have a courageous conversation with you about something that's on my mind that's I think important, but not right now." Next week. And the reason I do it next week is because I want to give them time to prepare for it. I want to give them time to not have this wall go up and be super defensive, because that doesn't usually work. And then the other thing is, if I can, I like to have it in person. If not, then on a video screen, because I want people to see my tone. I want people to see my personal, and so for me, that's the, because then when you've done all that, it's a little bit less pressure on yourself, because you've organized your thoughts, you've let them know, and there's, and I find the conversation go a lot better. And sometimes you're surprised. Like I know one time I talked to my wife about something, and she thought I was totally going to go a different direction. And I went, she thought I was going to tell her, you've been off work for 3 months and you've had this package and you should go get a job now. And I was like, no, what you should be doing right now, you've been working at a toxic company for 14 years and you've been let go and you have a package. You need more time to heal, is what I told her. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, like, take more time to heal. And she's like, yeah, great, that's what I'm going to do. And so that went really, really well. But in person is really important too.
Well, here's what I got out of your conversation, and I think a really important point here. Number one, I don't think you should delay. Like I love the fact that here's what I meant. Delaying the conversation is not a good idea when it's festering in you. Yes, allowing the person to prepare, meaning voice the concern immediately, right? Here, there's a couple of caveats to that. Number one, anytime a conflict is there or it exists, you feel it, you identify it, right? Sometimes some people might need a little time to just be, was that meant to happen? Or maybe it's that personality clash, as you said, right? But if it happens 2 times, 3 times, rather than having it go 5 months or 3 months, you really want to address the issue immediately. Now, how you address it and where you address it is also super important, right? Because the one thing that you do not want to do, especially in a team environment, is to point that issue out amongst your coworkers, because that feels very much like a personal attack. So I would absolutely make sure that you are finding the time, as you said, Bobby, to approach the person that you're having this conflict with, or maybe that you perceive having a conflict with. Sometimes it's how we receive information, and that person, maybe it's our own our sensitivities or our own triggers, and we're not even aware that it's within us that's actually feeling something that doesn't exist. So that's why it's really important to not come out accusing someone. The other thing that's really important is when you mention, rather than saying, hey, can we do a conflict resolution thing? As you said, I would love to set some time aside to chat about a few things that I'd like some clarity on. Or perhaps you can pivot that to say, hey, I'd like to use the brainstorm idea, right? I'd love to brainstorm on some ideas, or I'd love to have a chat to get some clarification. Hey, I'd be very interested in your point of view, and I'd love to share my point of view on something that's been on my mind. And I'd love to do that in more of a private setting. Okay. So it's so important that it doesn't, like, you take the tension out of it, but
Yeah.
you want to give that person the respect of privacy. In a recent situation that I heard about, again, in a lot of public forums, sometimes just by saying to someone, let's say, Bobby, you and me, we're in the kitchen, there's two other people there, and I say to Bob, hey, Bob, like, that article you shared about XYZ, like, I didn't think that was really appropriate. And now there's two other people that are listening. Immediately, that makes Bob feel like you're trying. You might be thinking you're just helping and it's off the cuff,
Right.
but now you pointed out something, and Bob is now thinking, well, why did you do that? Like, nobody else felt that way. That was just your feelings. And that could cause more conflict moving forward.
Yeah, I think if you create an environment where they have this wall goes up and they get defensive, I think that becomes a bit of an issue, and I think that applies to, again, all relationships. I've had, and sometimes sometimes they don't work out. I had a colleague I was working with, and actually, Carmela and we had not a conflict, but I said, let's get on a call because we need to get some clarity on something, and we did that.
Sure.
And it went well, but then there was also something I was like, there's still something missing. So I sent her a quick message. You know what? I want to get this all in an email, and I wrote it out for her. So okay, and then she's like, cool, now we get it, and that was great. But sometimes it doesn't work out. So I had a colleague, and I said, come on over here, come to my place, let's talk. And we talked, and he didn't like that I was promoting his topic of expertise with my work, because I was like, look, if I can get you business, then I'll bring you in, and that way you'll make money.
I heard about that one. That was shocking.
And I could take a cut, and he was really upset about it. I was like, well, okay, I'm glad you came here. We tried to talk about it. He didn't come on board. I said, from now on, I will never promote your stuff. I think that you're missing out on an opportunity, but I respect your need to just do it by yourself. And that's it. And then we never worked together again. And that's okay. I mean, again, with the whole thing you talk about respect, I think is really good. And so speaking of respect and communication, let's segue this now to relationships. Carmela is a relationship expert as well. I'm a relationship aficionado. So let's talk about that. I mean, conflict in personal relationships. What are some things you have on that?
Yes. Something that I'd love to say it was mine. However, it's not, but a resource that I used is from the Gottman Institute. And this is so key. These 4 ways of being or communication styles are always present inside of a failing relationship. Okay. So being able to identify these communication styles or areas of conflict are also going to allow you to deal with the problem before it becomes a serious problem. Okay, so I won't elaborate on all of them because some of them are just obvious. So they call them the 4 deadly horsemen. Okay, they are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. All right, so criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. When your partner does this and displays this behavior on a consistent basis, there are obviously things you need to deal with, and conflict is very present. At the core of those things, like when you think of criticism, when you are labeling someone and you are attacking their person, like who they are, you never do this, or you are a this, as if like there's no hope for that person. Obviously, on the one side, the person delivering that message has almost given up, right? They've come to the
Yeah.
complete point of frustration where there's no agreement. There's no agreement present. And now they're attacking a person's character, and that's mean. At the end of the day, it's very mean. So continuous use of that is terrible. Stonewalling, for those who don't know, is completely talking like just non-communication. There is no positive outcome to non-communication because we're talking about resolving
And that's a
conflict.
common thing a lot of guys do. They're just like,
You go to
right?
the cave.
And they don't say anything. And it's like, okay, you're basically stonewalling the conversation because your partner wants to hear from you. Like, well, what you're thinking. Like, we can't assume we know what you're thinking. You have to express yourself.
Yes. And there are times when you need to step away, even when you want to go to your cave or the women want to go to their den. You need to have a time limit on that, because I don't believe you need to address the situation immediately, particularly when you want to diffuse the emotion that might be attached to that conversation. But you
Right.
really want to be mindful that the longer you delay the conversation, the more hurt there is on both sides, because your partner may be somebody, they have needs too. They would like to express their concern. They would like the opportunity to hear them out. And I don't think we address the importance of listening, Bobby.
Sorry,
And
what?
listening.
What?
I,
No, I'm kidding.
we didn't but listening to understand and not
Mm,
listening to respond. Listening to
exactly.
respond is like, you're talking, but I want to get my point across. I don't even care what you're
Yeah,
having to say yet,
absolutely.
right? And you can tell when people are doing that because you don't feel heard. So acknowledging how someone feels is important, and also saying it back. So, Bobby, what you're saying is, where it comes to you and
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
you would like more time to do XYZ. And what you need from me is delivery about these things at this time. Is that correct? And that was one of the things that we
Yeah.
dealt with, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Simple.
empathetic and active listening is really, really important. In fact, I did that last night with my son. We actually had a big talk with our 13-year-old about behaviors and school and his personal development. And it had something we've been waiting to do for ages. And during one of the key moments, I said, can you? I actually asked him, can you recite back to me if you understand what we just meant?
What you're
What we,
asking, yes.
and so he mentioned two things. Okay, great, you get it. I'm glad you get it, because he's also someone that keeps everything close to his heart. Doesn't talk very much. He's very concise and precise. And so he said, and I was like, okay, great. You're getting the message. I understand. That's great. And personal messages too. Like, I think not just even saying, what I'm hearing from you is this, but even what I just said, which is, asking them to maybe reiterate if they understand what I just said or what we discussed.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. And part of the communication responsibility as the person who's trying to resolve the issue is to make sure that you both clearly understand both sides and that you
Right.
both work towards that agreement. And you mentioned in the very beginning of this conversation the clash of personalities, and I think it's so important that no matter what, even especially when our partners know how to, push our buttons,
The
is that
buttons. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, focus on the issue and not the person, right? Like, really try to because we all come with our stories and assumptions, and you might be you're not thinking logically anymore, you're just annoyed. So focus on the issue and not the person, because and really, if you want to win, sometimes you've got to ask yourself that question, especially inside a personal relationship. I remember my one therapist, when I did a family session, said, do you want to win or do you want to be happy? Right? Of
Okay.
course, I want to be happy. So there are just sometimes it's not worth it to argue my point. For what? Okay, I was right, you're right. It doesn't really matter. I want to move forward. So when you are committed to a positive outcome, then you're going to do what's necessary to make sure that you move past that.
Yeah, and I think it's good learning to actually investigate and do some research on the whole idea of conflict resolution, because there is win win, win lose, and lose lose. And so if you understand how they work and create win-win through compromise versus win-lose. I think that'll help you. And again, this is all about powerful partnerships. Just to reset what we're doing here, we're talking about conflict resolution and partnerships. How do you, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's a team relationship, your boss, a work-related thing, but we're trying to do that. We're going to go after this. We're going to go quickly just for a little bit on Clubhouse as well. We're going to do like 5 more minutes on Clubhouse.
Yeah, we're just about to wrap up on LinkedIn Live. 5 more minutes. Are there any questions at all within?
Well, there's lots of comments. So a couple things I want to mention. We're doing a live stream every week now, every Tuesday. So the link to next week is already here. It's actually in the link.
Yay!
It's in the comments. So that one is next week, and I'm excited about that. But a lot of people are just sharing. There's no questions, mostly lots of great comments. That one question was, what style of leadership would servant leadership fit? And I kind of said the coaching one was probably the best one in the chat. Tamika says stories what we tell ourselves are a big part of the challenges. Anna says it's available to have a shared method to use, and we all have hidden dimensions which impact why and how we show up in conflict. So knowing thyself helps you. Knowing how others react will also help you. But I mean, that to me is a big piece. And that's why we do this every week, because, I think we have a great partnership, Camelia and I. And so sharing this here, sharing this on Clubhouse, sharing on Twitter, and letting people know how to have great partnerships, both personal and professional, I think goes a long way. So it's been a great conversation about conflict. One question I want to throw at you, Camelia, is how do you know when to bring in help, outside help?
Oh, to me, that's an easy one. Number one, you do not have to come to a point where you're stonewalling, having contempt and all of that, right? I'll give an example. There's a gentleman that I know. He's going to kill me that I don't know his name. And we met on Clubhouse, but for the last 25 years, him and his wife have agreed to do active therapy once a week. No, even when the relationship is amazing. So the fact that they do half an hour sessions once a week, they're committed to that, like resolve so much conflict. So whenever your relationship is at a point where you're thinking you just can't get past an issue or an important issue, that's when you should bring a professional. The other thing is when you are feeling and knowing you're a bit overwhelmed and that you're unsure whether, sometimes you're just not sure, or maybe you understand that you're having difficulty communicating. If you're somebody who is a passive aggressive person, or your communication style is passive, then you want to work on how to express and communicate, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a people pleaser and you find yourself saying yes, yes, yes all the time, and you need to set strong boundaries, that's another time when you should use and hire a coach, in my opinion. What about you, Bobby?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head with, and I'll share a personal story with you guys. My partner and I sought marriage counseling in 2014, so that was 8 years ago, and it was amazing. And what I can tell you is that the reason I asked for it is because I felt like I couldn't express myself to her or create the environment or atmosphere where I felt like talking about this. And so I thought having someone help me, I wasn't worried about articulating my feelings because I'm a pretty articulate, eloquent guy, and I'm a professional speaker by trade. But I thought that maybe they could help me create an environment where I felt like it was comfortable, and they could maybe paraphrase what I'm saying or identify. And it worked well because he basically met with me to understand my needs, met with her to understand her needs, and then brought us in. And and then over a period of time, we were able to work things out and have the right tools. So I think for me, that's when I would do it.
Let me just say that question was the perfect way to segue into next week, because next week, I actually have 2 guests. I didn't have a chance to share the second guest, but next week we are featuring Dayo Akronade. She is the founder of the Wisdom app. The Wisdom app is a mentorship app meant one-to-one. And next week's topic is what things you should consider when hiring or choosing to hire or work with a mentor. So that's incredible. And it's also the day before International Women's Day. Right. So I do have another coach, Deanna, and she's talking about for a short segment, intimate violence partnerships, because that's also an area where there are a lot of people pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and now in these situations that have a hard time reaching out or may have a difficult time expressing in that situation. So I think it's so important to have a conversation around that for a little bit as well. So the
Love
link
it.
is already there. Where can they find it, Bobby?
Yeah, it's in the link under in the chat box here. But if you look us up, you'll see that we have events planned for next week. It's already been actually on my profile. I shared it on Sunday, so just
Perfect.
yesterday. So you'll see it there, and we can get you and just sign up, and you can invite people to it. And it's gonna be awesome. So I'm looking forward to it.
Is there anything else that you want our friends to participate in that you're up to while we're
Well,
here?
wow. I mean, for the most part, I mean, I have a lot going on with social audio rooms. So I run a room tomorrow on LinkedIn Mastery at 4 p.m. I do two on Wednesday. So I'm doing a lot of stuff when it comes to social audio on Twitter Spaces, on Clubhouse, and also LinkedIn Audio. So they're all there. But for now, I'm actually going to be launching an International Women's Day featured a bunch of events through the Thought Leadership Brand Clubs. I'm very excited about that. So stay tuned. You'll learn more about that.
Yes, myself as well. You can find everything about me on my Instagram or here on LinkedIn. Obviously, would love you to continue to join us every single Wednesday, Monday, 2 to 3. I do have a show on Fireside in the evenings. Tonight I'm in Utah, so I'll go back to regular programming next week. And of course, as a matchmaker, as somebody who's committed to helping my clients find love, anybody who's single, please DM me single on Instagram and also reach out to me here on LinkedIn. I am open to chatting with you and helping you find your powerful partner. So anyway,
Love
that's
it.
it for the live. Thanks,
All
guys.
right, guys. See you later. We'll see you on Clubhouse now. All right. Talk soon.
Yay. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.